Welcome to the Podcast Profits Unleashed podcast on Mintwave Radio and all podcast platforms. If you're a coach, consultant, therapist, or healer with an online program and would like to find out how to grow your business whilst having fun podcasting, go to podcastprofitsunleashed.com/free. Let's dive into today's episode.
So, welcome to the show. I am so excited about today because we've got a really special guest, Steve Sims. He calls himself a creative disruptor. And today we're going to have a little bit of a talk about how you guys can get out of the funk and just get stuff done. Now, I'm your host, Cam Roberts. I'm just here helping other experts start, launch, grow their podcast and turn them into sales machine because it's fun. Now, Steve is himself a fellow podcaster with the art of making things happen. So go and check it out on Apple, Spotify. But this guest, he's not an ordinary man. To the listeners, do you know anyone that's worked with Sir Elton John, maybe Elon Musk, sent people down to see the wreck of the Titanic on the seabed? Or even maybe has closed a museum or two in Florence just for a private dinner party and then had Andrea Bocelli serenade them whilst they were eating their pasta. You do now. This is Steve Sims. Now, he's been quoted as being the real life Wizard of Oz by Forbes and Entrepreneur magazine. He's a best-selling author, Bluefishing, The Art of Making Things Happen. And also, I love this title, Go for Stupid, The Art of Achieving Ridiculous Goals. He is just a sought-after coach, sought-after speaker. He's spoken at the Pentagon and Harvard twice. So what can I say? Welcome to the show, Steve.
Thanks for having me. I've got to live up to that now, haven't I?
I think you can. But where do we start? I know you're from East London originally. You're there. What did you say? Slumming it in LA. You started out as a bricklayer. So please share with the audience, how on earth did you get to do all those mad things that I spoke about earlier, coming from East London?
Do you know, the story is going to be no different to anyone else listening to this podcast. I spent most of my teenage years pissed off. I'd left school. I'm slightly older than Google. I was born and raised in a period where I didn't have Instagram to point out how inadequate my life was. So I just used to go to school, not like school. And it was that generation where your parents go, you get a job, you spend 60 years of your life there, then you retire, and then you can enjoy life. It was that mentality. I couldn't even get a job. My dad owned a little construction firm that did porches and patios and every now and then a slightly bigger gig. It was just this little owner-operator bricklaying firm that I would get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and go home at 8 o'clock. So I didn't mind. I knew how to work hard, but I wasn't working smart. And of course, I would go to work and I'd see all these people driving cars or walking into an office in a nice suit. And to me, these were the wealthiest people in the planet. So as a child mentality, I was like, why them and why not me? And it was that innate curiosity married with the aggravation. As I say, it's very important for you to be curious and then to be pissed off enough to do something about it. If you've got a little spot on the wall and you go, oh, look, there's a little mark on the wall, nothing's going to happen to it. But if it annoys you enough, you'll do something about it. So I had curiosity and aggravation. And I started my life by literally just going up to people who looked as though they had the life that I wanted. And as a broke-ass biker from East London, I was rolling around. I could afford maybe 1 or 2 beers a week. And I had a motorcycle that would start whenever it wanted to. And I would see someone getting out of a nice car or had a nice suit, and I'd run up to them, literally run up to them and go, hey, how come you're rich and I'm not? I really thought they were rich. And I realized that, 240 pound or 16 stone of ugly biker running at you wasn't the best way to ask a question. So I literally just went out on a quest to try and ask successful people, hey, how come you're successful? And you start off by talking to the guy that owns the local pub, the guy that owns the gas station. I remember chatting with a guy just outside of Reading. He owned a gas station and the local supermarket. Now, at the age of 18 years old, I thought this guy was Richard Branson. He had multiple companies. Oh, my God. His car had the current year's plate on it, so it was a brand new car. I was like, oh, my God, this guy's everything. And I just started that. And the funny thing was, I then thought, what I need to do is I need to change my environment. And it's very important, the old story about the shark, that the shark will grow to whatever size his tank is. I realized that being in a bricklaying environment, nothing against masonry at all, but being in that environment wasn't going to make me a billionaire. So I had to change my environment. So I tried all the kinds of jobs that surround yourself with affluent people, still curious to just talk to a rich person and go, hey, what do I need to do to be you? And I learned the fine art of getting fired on a frequent basis. I was fired from insurance, chauffeuring. I was even fired from being a security guard for looking too scary. I thought, how can that be? I thought that's what you needed. I ended up getting the job of a stockbroker, which was just insane. But I had a friend of mine from school that was a stockbroker in the bank, and they were recruiting something like about 100 stockbrokers, trainee stockbrokers for Hong Kong. So I managed to wiggle my way into that crowd. I didn't even finish school. And here I was being sent over to Hong Kong. I lasted, and this is no joke, 24 hours in that job in Hong Kong, and I was fired because they realized that they should have never taken me over there. But rather than going back to London, where I could have walked into the pub with the usual kind of, what were you thinking? Oh my God. And be able to fall back on the, I just gave it a shot. And I thought, I'm going to stay in Hong Kong. I've got no ties. I've got no shackles. I've got no one weighing me down. Let me see what I can do. And I ended up getting the job of a doorman on a shitty nightclub in Wan Chai. So not exactly, I went from the fine art of being a bricklayer and a masonry to now my job positions to punch people. But I noticed the weird thing about entrepreneurs, and this is why all of your people are weird. And that's a good thing, because we're the Hogwarts kids, aren't we? We're a little bit different. And we don't feel as though we fit in until we realize God never built us to fit in. He built us to disrupt and to stand out. And when I got that job as a doorman, I had these two other meatheads that basically just wanted to score the pretty girl for the night and avoid as much blood on the shirt as they could. But when we were stood on the door, they were checking out the girls. I was getting a PhD in human psychology and interaction. I was seeing how, and we've all seen this, I was seeing how rich people actually act with each other and how those with no money that pretend they have money, how they're playing. And I suddenly realized, and Chris Voss says it, intention has a smell. I could sense those that were full of it and those people that had the bank accounts and were just really relaxed and chill. And I started trying to strike up conversations with those people. And then it started off by just going, hey, there's a new nightclub up the road on Thursday. Do you want me to see if I can get you in? And they'd be like, oh, thanks. And I became the oracle for nightlife in Hong Kong. But it all started with me trying to have a conversation with a rich person to do what you do every day, the podcast. I wanted to have that conversation because I wanted the knowledge. I had the hard work. I had the focus. I had the determination. I felt as though I had the smarts, but there had to be something that they had that I didn't. And that's what it was. I started on that quest.
Love it. But also what you did do, it's all about putting yourself out there. None of that would have happened if you hadn't said, you know what, I'm already in Hong Kong. Let's go with the flow. Do you think that so many people, fear stops them? Fear stops them in their tracks. They're not going to do that. If they'd lost their job in 24 hours, they would have been on the flight home. But not being afraid to start a conversation. I don't know about you. The youngsters, because of the different way that they've been growing up, it's like they're almost Even my own daughters, they're horrified that I will strike up a conversation with the old lady at the checkout queue or at the bus stop just for no reason at all, because they've been brought up to everything's on social media. And like you say, it's all about pictures and selfies and just chucking it up there rather than having real conversations. And you don't know. And this is the same with your podcast. The beauty is having conversations with people like you would do. You don't know what comes up, because if an opportunity arises, who are they going to think of? I was speaking to Steve last night about XYZ. Boom, perfect. So what do you think is going wrong these days, why people are so afraid to do this and step out?
So that's quite a good statement, and we need to unpack it because there's a few points and conversations in there. I'm scared. I get frightened of things. I race motorcycles. I used to fight kickboxing. I do a load of those different things. I love fear. The way that you handle fear is to frame it correctly. When I was in Hong Kong and I lost my job, and bearing in mind, I've been married since birth. So I was already engaged to a young lady in London when I lost my job in Hong Kong. It wasn't so much that I had lost my job and I was now frightened to go back. It was that I was terrified to go back. What was more scary for me to go back and to face the jeers and to know that's my life, to go back and to suddenly realize I'm inadequate of anything else, or the fear of trying? So I found that it was scarier for me to go home with my tail between my legs. When I race motorcycles, I have a fear. I'm terrified of being last. So it's not a case that I'm scared of the start and I'm scared of the loud noise or I'm scared of everyone around. I'm terrified of being the boy at the back and coming in last. Okay? No one wants to be a loser. So I've reframed it. A lot of people, it tells them to stop. I'm scared of this, therefore I'm going to stop. And there's other people, the successful people, that uses that fear to propel them. I heard a statement years ago from a friend of mine called Joe Polish. He said, the definition of hell is to meet the man or woman that you could have been. And that should, when you get that moment in your life, when you can stop, go in reverse, park, or you can go forward, maybe get a couple of grazes and scratches, define where you want to be. Which one do you want to be? And let's be serious, those scars and cuts and bruises, that's just proof we tried. And you say about having the conversations. I realized years ago, only because a mentor of mine said it, to get a great answer, ask a great question. And in the early stages, I was running up to people going, hey, how come you're rich and I'm not? There was nothing really wrong with my question, but my delivery sucked. So I learned to rephrase it. And then along the way, and my wife laughs at this, we're talking about an East London biker that literally gets paid to travel the world to teach people about communication. That's hysterical. But I'm only good at teaching people about communication because sadly, the world is going in reverse on its ability to communicate. We've never been more connected as a society and never been more disconnected. And it's like you doing press-ups. It's like you doing weightlifting. It's like you running a marathon. All of these are muscles that if you don't use it, you lose it. That's communication. If you don't know how to literally walk into a bar, you would get on great. We'd walk in a bar, you're like, hey, how you doing? Oh, I like your shirt. Great. What do you drink? And we'd start a conversation because, hey, we may be introverts, which I am a lot of the time. That's why I like riding motorcycles. No one can talk to me on a bike. And you've just told me about where you live. You're not living where you want because you want to come have a party every night. So we've all got that kind of introvert in us that wants to be alone, but we know the power, the beauty, and the ROI of being able to connect. And I think you're terribly smart in what you said. If you can strike up a conversation with the person making your coffee, the person behind you at the checkout counter, the person that's maybe waiting in line somewhere for an Uber or something, if you can strike up a conversation and you're comfortable about doing it, then when you've got to strike up a conversation with a business prospect, a partner, a banker, an investor, you've already trained that muscle. You should never have an issue communicating when your arse is on the line. I've got a friend of mine. He's a Silicon Valley tycoon. Guy basically owns countries. And he goes out and he pitches these startup companies. Now, the funny thing about Silicon Valley is most startup companies fail. Most people in Silicon Valley know that. But every now and then you'll get a little one that will go ballistic. Twitter, Uber, Apple, Google. You've only got to get 1 out of 1,000 to go ballistic and you're a billionaire. So he goes out and he pitches these companies knowing that most of these things are going to fail and you're looking for the unicorn that doesn't. But he says that when he goes out, the word that you don't want to hear is no. So when he gets up and he orders his Uber, he'll say things like, oh, can we do this? Or, hey, what's the chance of me getting a 25% discount off of this ride? And he asks the Uber driver this, and he'll ask the guy doing the coffee, hey, what's the chance of me getting 25% discount on my cup of coffee? And he will ask everybody during that day these kind of questions. And he said he's never got a yes. He's always got a no. But then he's not scared of getting a no when he walks into the room. So when he walks into the room and the investor looks at him and he says, no, we're not going to proceed. It's not scared him. It's not shocked him. It's not hurt him because he's been hearing no's all morning. Now he can go, there seems to be a miscommunication here. Why are we saying that? And he can just strive on. And that's why he closes so well, because he's not scared of the no, and he values the understanding of communication, like so obviously you do.
Oh, that's brilliant. And I never thought of it like that, actually, because it is. Why do you think then these things have an effect on, because obviously for a lot of people, it has an emotional effect on them, and they hear that no, and they start overthinking or overanalyzing it all, and it's somehow affected their feelings of worthiness or whatever, and that's what stops them. So where are people going wrong? Because going back to what we said about you just got to put yourself out there, and I think there are so many entrepreneurs out there and other podcasters, right? People have a pod, they're still somehow afraid to put themselves out there. Obviously, some kind of fear going on about getting a no, or fear of being judged in this whole world of social media. What can they do to get out of that kind of funk?
Do you know, there's two answers, or there's 2 points to that. And the first one, I can agree with you. I had no idea why people got upset with the word no until I had a very smart man come on a podcast with me the other day and actually explained it brilliantly. You've heard of the reptilian brain, haven't you?
Yeah.
It's that part of your brain that basically has kept us alive since we started crawling out of the water. It's that thing that when we hear a bang or we hear a rustle in the bushes, it suddenly makes us move. When we see something we like and it attracts us, we get a smell and we're absorbed and we're now hungry. That reptilian brain is not complicated. It works quickly, it works instinctively, and it's been trained for thousands of years to create that response in us. We hear a dog bark, we get alerted, okay? That's the reptilian brain. I didn't realize that it is also anchored to the word no. And he explained this. In the olden days, when we were in caves, we had a community. You had those people that would hunt for food. You had those people that would look after the children. You had those people that would look after the home, look after the cooking, and it would grow. And then it became villages, and the villages would do the same. You'd have those leather makers over there, those people that made the food, those people that foraged the farms. All of these different things would grow. And if you did something out of line within your community, you got banished. You were sent out into the woods to be on your own. You were told you had to leave the village. You'd done something that couldn't be tolerated, and you were exiled. And we still anchor that to no. We don't like rejection because we don't want to be part of. We don't want to know because all the time we haven't got to know, I'm still part of this conversation. I'm still part of that room. The second I get a no, you're going to expel me and banish me to the woods and I'll probably die. And that reptilian brain is still telling us that no is a bad thing. You don't want to be expelled. You don't want to be banished. So no, you need to avoid. You need to get on. And no is not a getting on word. And that's where it stems from. And of course, we've amplified that because we got everyone living a perfect picture world on Instagram. I've often said, I wish my life was as beautiful as it looks on Instagram. You know, I'm not going to put on there when I get a client that's being awkward or when I've got to travel somewhere and the plane gets, you're not going to put your pains on there. No, of course you're not. And no one does. So everyone judges everyone else based on a superficial and oftentimes fake example of what they're living. We don't know what people are going through. Case in point, look at Will Smith recently. He exploded a few years back on the Oscars, and then we started to see what he was going through in his life. You don't know what someone's going through. Just because they put a little picture up on Instagram that they're all looking rosy while they're sipping their tequila or they're enjoying their dessert on a beach or something, you don't know what's going on in their head. And it's because of that disconnect, and it's also because of the fear of alienating someone, that we don't want to turn around and go, hey, Karen, I saw you having a good holiday, but let me ask, is everything okay in your world? We were scared of having that conversation. So what do we do about being scared of having that conversation? We don't have the conversation. So by thinking that the natural way not to alienate you is not to talk to you, now I'm not using that muscle and now I can't talk to anyone. COVID was terrible. Okay, because it taught a lot of people how not to communicate. And I remember when COVID came across and everyone was like, oh, woe is me, I can't go out and I can't hang out with my friends. And all these people going, oh, I can't go to the gym when their fat ass wasn't going to the gym before COVID. COVID became a brilliant time for excuses. And then, of course, COVID stopped and we could all go out again. But people didn't want to go out because they were now scared of actually being judged and because they'd lived in this digital bubble. Now, COVID was my 2 best tax revenue years that I've ever had because none of my clients could be at work. None of my prospects could be traveling. None of the people I wanted to chat with could be going anywhere. Every single person I wanted, it was like shooting fish in a bucket. It was phenomenal. And I know so many other entrepreneurs. In fact, I think it was the London Times. But it was a British newspaper declared that over the 2 years of COVID, there were more first-time millionaires than at any other time in our economy. Any other time in our economy. Not the dot-coms, not the big real estate booms. 2-year pandemic, the greatest growth of millionaires in any other time of our economic history. That says that people look at things differently. And when you look at things differently, you act differently. And communication is the defining factor that's going to be between you being in job or Amazon taking it over.
Oh, that is so interesting. And this happens so much when things on the face of it, and I love that. It's just how you look at it. When people are all doom and gloom, we're going into another recession. I'd always heard that things like, I don't know, network marketing companies have increased because maybe people are looking at other ways of making money. So it makes a lot of sense that during COVID, the ones who were already set up and ready to go, yes, you've got a hungry audience, right? They love that. They're stuck. And I don't know about you, but obviously it was horrendous. But yeah, I hate it. Steve, I was driving a cab.
Look, I know COVID hurt a lot of industries, hurt a lot of people, and I don't go against that for a second. But I am going to tell you quite openly that COVID was some of the best years I ever had. A friend of mine actually coined it really well, because I was now trapped. My son had just left his apartment, moved back home while looking at a new apartment. He ended up staying with us for another 2.5 years. So I had 2 of my 3 kids in the house, my wife and my 2 dogs. Okay. And we got a nice place. We're not under each other's skin and stuff, but I no longer had the privacy of just me and my wife. And also I've been with my wife for 30 something years, but we're always traveling. We're always busy. We're always working, and we spend a lot of time together, but we don't spend all the time together. And a friend of mine said, I knew I loved my wife, but I was really happy to discover how much I liked her. And that was for me. I realized that I want to wake up in the morning and not go anywhere. Now I've cut down on all my traveling and my speaking gigs. Now automatically have the claimer that my wife has to be involved and has to come with me. So for me, COVID was a fantastic time. Again, it comes down to how you view things. I've heard it in different aspects, but have you ever heard the yellow car story?
No.
You may have heard it in a different context. I've heard it called the handbag. I've heard it called other things. But the one that I was taught was the yellow car. You're walking through a garage, you're walking through a parking lot, you're walking through a car dealership, and you see this car, and it's this weird, mustardy, paley, washed out yellow. And you think, that's a weird freaking color. Who the hell would buy that color? And then you're driving home. What's the only color car you can see on the road? It's that color. When your mind recognizes something, that's all you can see. When your mind recognizes doom and gloom, that's all. When your mind recognizes opportunity and COVID comes across, what's the playing field full of? It's just shooting fish in a bucket. And the trouble with our social feeds, I love social networks. It gives you the chance to see things you could never see. It's a brilliant, beautiful thing, but it's built on algorithms. And again, that reptilian brain can dictate what you may be looking at cookery, and then all of a sudden you'll see a mugging in your feed. They just pop random stuff in there just to say, and you go, oh my God, that's disgusting. But what do? You watch it. So the algorithms go, oh my God, she loves watching muggings. So all of a sudden you got the following day, now all of a sudden you're getting that, oh my God, there's muggings everywhere. The world must be mugging what a horrible world. And all of a sudden you're not seeing the cooking anymore. You need to take control. Whenever I see something on my Instagram or anything like that, I literally click not interested. And I literally have to push it so it doesn't give me that. So all of the stuff all I see is fun bloopers and families and motorbikes and cooking and traveling. And anytime something you go in there, not interested. And I have to focus on what I get. So if every day, all I'm getting is everything I love, what's my attitude to the world going to be?
I'm okay, Jack.
I'm okay, but more importantly, the world's okay. And if you're full of positivity and if you're full of enthusiasm and if you're full of opportunity. Now, look, I'm not here to say the world isn't tough. It is tough. I'm living here in America at the moment, and we got a bloody cartoon going on as a potential government. It's a joke. And we've got a lot of other ridiculous things going on. And there's areas of the world that are going through wars. I'm not saying ignore it, but understand, control what you can control. And what you can control is how you respond to you. And so I want to be positive. I want to be open. And the people I train and the coach and where I speak, I try to bring that in to go, look, we're in this situation, but you can do something about it. And here's what you can do about it. So having the opportunities coming to me and being positive, I know I've got a greater advantage to win the game.
Oh, yeah. And everybody has that same opportunity. You said something right at the beginning about it starts with being curious. And then that's going to be combined with you've got to have a positive attitude because, life, right? Yeah. I'm sure that even for you, that on the face of it, people might look at you and go, it's all right for him because people just look at the end result, right?
Yeah.
They don't see, I'm sure if you shared your whole story to get there, it wouldn't have just all been fantastic. There would have been some dips and up and down. And people don't see that, do they? They just either see the end result. And if what they're feeling right now or what's going on in their world right now, it just seems too overwhelming or too big a step to get there. So for anybody listening right now, what would be your top 3 tips to help them get out of that rut and just venture out and aim for something that you actually want to do? Because nobody wants to be stuck in a dead-end job.
Right.
In that maybe in that safety blanket, which is fake because there is no safety blanket because you could lose your job.
Safety's a myth.
Yeah, totally agree. And I do feel that COVID exaggerated that, didn't it? Because I think people realised that their safety blanket never actually was a safety blanket. Again, it was just how they were looking at. But on the flip side of that, I'm with you. I think there were so many good things that come out of it. And a lot of people, because they were forced to be at home, made them actually go a little bit inward and maybe think, actually, when I come out of this, I don't even want to go back to that job. So I think so many new careers, I think lots of new coaches came out of that because they realized that they wanted to do what they loved. But if somebody was out there and they're still on that, sitting on the fence, what would you say to them? Your top 3 tips?
So we've got the top 3 tips. You're drilling it down. I will actually just quickly tell you about a video that I did. I had a speaking gig a couple of years ago in Venice, Italy. Very well paying gig. They flew me over there first class. Everything was absolutely fantastic. I got put up in this amazing apartment, and then I spoke to I think it was about 5,000 people in Italy. And I got off the plane. And my wife had actually flown over, but she had stayed in England to be with the family. So I had left her in England, flew on the little hop over to Venice. They had a Viva speedboat waiting for me that would take me to the hotel. Everything was James Bond. Everything was perfect. I was taking the snaps and it was going up on Instagram and everything was beautiful. And then I'd gone over to have a coffee on the morning of me speaking, and I'd taken the Viva speedboat over to the mainland, just so I could have some coffee, get away from the venue so I wasn't bumping into people. On my way back to the venue, you grab yourself and you're like, oh, this would make a fantastic Instagram story. St. Mark's in the back. So I lift it up and I'm like, here I am. I'm in Venice. You probably got that. I'm about to go and speak to about 5,000 people at this venue in Venice. And then something turned in me. And I said to him, and before you turn off, this is the icing. You don't see the shitty cake. You don't see the crap. You don't see the 4,000 gigs that said no to me, laughed at me, hung up on me, that said that you don't know what you're talking, you can't help it. You only see the cream now. And it's only the tip of the iceberg that you're focusing on. You haven't seen me hurting. You haven't seen me crying. You haven't seen me screwed over. You haven't seen me going broke. But I guarantee you, every entrepreneur on the planet will understand those feelings because they've all been through it. So don't look at the shine. Understand what work goes into creating the shine. And I did this video, and it got a bit dark because it just suddenly turned to, I'm showing this rosy shit when this is just the candle just perched on the top. And I think that's what people get frightened of doing. You say about the 3 things, and you said about because they don't want to be. That's the first thing. How much do you not want to be where you are? I said to you right at the beginning, and I've got this from Elon Musk and some of the most powerful people in the planet. It's a combination of curiosity, which is childlike, married with forcible aggravation. I'm really curious about what that button does, then I'm going to touch it and I'm going to find out. It's that childlike mentality, but you can't be curious without the action. So the first question is, I want everyone listening to this podcast to quite simply go to somewhere in that house, that building, that street that they don't normally go to. You know, it could be the edge of the park. Anyway, it could be the top of the stairs. It could be in the attic. I don't care. Just somewhere that's not normal for you. And I want you to stand there and say, how happy am I about stepping back into where I was? You may think it sounds a bit silly. You go, oh, I'll do that when I'm driving in the car. No, don't do it. You can't see what it looks like outside of the rut when you're in the bloody rut. So go and stand somewhere where you don't usually see, don't usually go. And that is your metaphor for stepping out of the rut and going, how happy am I about going back in? And you may turn around and go, it pays me okay. The kids are okay. The wife's okay. The husband's yeah, I do. Then you're not aggravated enough to do something about it. So how pissed off and aggravated are you that you are dealing with the hand that you feel was dealt to you? And if you're not happy about it, then what room are you in that's going to change it? This is where it gets important. So the step one, get yourself somewhere neutral and ask yourself how pissed off you are with your current life and how happy you are to step back into it. Number two, you are a combination of the room you're in. Now, when you sit at a table and you go, hey, guys, girls, I don't like my life. I don't like my job. I really don't think I should do this. I'm thinking of doing this and I'm thinking of moving into that and I'm thinking of developing this online and selling these kind of. And if you look at everyone around your table, if they're all looking at you like a deer in headlights, like you've just gone stark raving mad, then you need to change that table. You need to move away from that room because two things are going to happen at that point. You're going to turn around and go, why are you looking at me like that? Are you not pissed off with your life? Or alternatively, and this is the more common one, you go, oh, so I don't know what I was thinking. I was having a mad moment. Someone must have spiked me coffee. I'll settle down now. Yeah, hey, Jimmy, how you doing? Nice sneakers. And you will dilute your dreams like the shark that grows to its environment. You will dilute your dreams based on that table. That's wrong. Get into a table where they go, Jimmy, I hear what you're saying, but if you thought about this, I may be able to help you and introduce. You need people to push, provoke, and challenge you. You don't need cheerleaders and you don't need naysayers. So if you're in those rooms and you get that, this is number two. Your environment will dictate how you grow and where you grow. And I want to be in a room full of people that have been bust. I want to be in a room full of people that have been broke and made millions. I don't want to get bloody diet advice off of a supermodel that's never been fat in her life. I want to find someone that's been 350 pounds and is now like an Adonis. That's the person I'll listen to. Someone that's gone through the pain and knows the strategy and structure that can help me. And then number three, this is very important, and this is probably one of the most important things I've understood in the planet. It's your relationship to time. The only thing you can't buy on Amazon is time, okay? If you waste it, and that's why so many people did so well during COVID, while everyone's out there going, oh, what can I watch on Netflix now? I finished The Sopranos, what next? Other people out there were designing, creating, and disrupting. You're not getting any younger. It's not something about, hey, I'll think about it in 2 weeks' time. I had a client contact me the other day for coaching. I said the other day, they contacted me about 2 months ago, and they've been asking me questions about the coaching. And then they contacted me and they said, oh, yeah, I'm looking at doing this. And I said, great, I'll have an answer out of you in 24 hours. They went, I need a couple of weeks. And I said, what's going to happen in 2 weeks that's not happened a month ago when we first met? You're still in a shitty position. You're still carrying the pain. What the hell's going to happen in 2 weeks' time that's going to make this pain more bearable than doing something today? Your relationship with time and how you act. And I am going to give you a fourth one. Here's the bonus one, okay? Don't grow up. This one's very important, okay? If you were to have a fight with someone, okay? Now, I'm not saying anyone wants to have a punch up, but let's say, for example, sake, you're in a nasty situation and you need to have a fight with someone. And as I say, I've done kickboxing. I actually fought semi-pro for it. Whenever you fight, you can do a 2-minute round or a 3-minute round, and you're heavily trained to be able to fight that long. 2 to 3 minutes. That's the maximum you can do. Then you need a break, and then you go, and then you need a break. So you can't last long. But for any of us that have got kids, how long can kids play? 24 hours. So instead of fighting with your environment, instead of fighting with this project, instead of fighting with that marketing plan, play with it. Start refocusing on okay, I'm doing that, but what can I do that's different? Yeah, how can I have fun with that? I know there's some classic pictures of Arnold Schwarzenegger when he used to go to the gym. He used to dress up as a superhero. You know what he was doing? There's pictures of Arnold out in Muscle Beach, dressed up as a superhero, because he became a child. And as a child, you can play all day. No one wants to do leg day. No one wants to work on this. It's going to hurt. But when you play, there's no pain.
Oh, I love that.
So there you go. You got 4.
Love that. The bonus one that I love. Yeah, never grow up, guys. It's a trick.
It is. it's a scam.
Trick. It is. It's a scam. Don't do it. And I love that because is this why you're called the creative disruptor?
It's funny because my wife always said that I was a 55-year-old 5-year-old, which is a bit out of date now because I'm 58. But she always just said I was a 5-year-old. I noticed the most powerful people in the planet gamified things. And I also noticed that as a society, and again, I'm picking on parents and I'm a parent, but when are you a parent?
Yeah. Yeah,
okay.
two elder daughters. I'm just become an empty nester, so I've.
All right. So here's the thing. Let's pick on you for a second, okay? Because we're all guilty of it. I'll give you the off the hook there for a start. But when your kid's 3 to 5 years old and they're running around with a pillowcase around their neck, going, "I'm a superhero," as a parent, what do? We go, "Yes, you are. You can be anything. I'm an astronaut. Yes, if you want to be an astronaut, you be an astronaut." Well, when they're 18 years old and they're still running around the living room with a pillowcase around their neck going, "I'm a superhero," what do? We go, "Grow up. Know your age. Stick to your lane." And we diminish what we can play at. Yeah, you got someone he's got a name known across the world, Elon Musk, who just had 0 experience in space travel, who after doing PayPal and then getting into cars went, "I'm going to go to space and land on the moon. Now, how do I do it?" And that's what he did. And we revere him, we attack him, but do you think he cares? No, because he plays a game. I remember being up in Fremont with him, and that was where the original Tesla plant is. It's still there. And it was actually taken over from, I think it was GM, and they had this massive, great press in this building. It was huge. It was like 2 stories high, massive piece of metal that would stamp all the doors for the General Motors cars. And when he bought this plant, he needed to get it out of the plant. He didn't want it. It was antique, horrible, heavy, took up most of it. He needed to get it out. But it weighed a ton and they didn't know how to get it out. So what did he do? He put a game up. The best answer I get on this wins this prize. And he made a game out of it. And then someone just remotely went, "I'll do that." There's an old story about Tabasco, and you may have heard it. The Tabasco bottles.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So Tabasco was the #1 selling spicy accessory, okay? And it was doing it, but it plateaued. They spent a fortune on marketing it, and it plateaued. It was just not making any more sales than it actually was. It was the top of its game, but it just couldn't get any further. They just couldn't make any more sales. So they got a marketing firm that came in, cost them millions of dollars. They got some guys to come in running adverts, same kind of thing. still plateaued. They offered $1,000 to their workers and said, the one that comes up with the best idea of how we can sell more bottles of Tabasco wins $1,000. One guy commented and said, make the hole at the top bigger. Because when you shook it, only little drops, it lasted forever. Make it bigger, they use up the bottle faster. And they did. Now they've increased the size of the top of the Tabasco bottle based on $1,000 gamble game within their own workforce. Playing is more important than you realize, and you can play far longer than you can fight.
Do you know, why do we think we've got to do everything ourselves? Just open it up, make it fun, and get other people involved to come up with the answers. That's what I get from that. That's so simple, but look, we have all been conditioned, right? We've been conditioned from school. I'm going to maybe suggest that, were you a little bit of a rebel? I know I was.
I think all entrepreneurs, we weren't rebels, we just weren't focused. When we all had that one teacher at school that really focused us and really connected with us. And guess what? That was the one that we got the best grades in. Okay. But most of the time, and I remember this, and this is another classic thing, we are pre-programmed from school not to ask questions, because you're sitting in the room and the teacher's speaking to 30 children, all learning things at different speeds and different levels and different speeds. And they say something and you go, excuse me, miss, I don't understand it. What does the school kids do? They look around and they go, oh, he's a dummy. And so the teacher explains it to you, but you're still not getting it. Okay? Do you dare to put your hand up twice? Of course not. You don't want to be called stupid. So the teacher goes, did you get it, Stevie? And you go, yeah, got it. And you didn't. So then you tune out for the rest of the class. So I think entrepreneurs, we work at a different pace. We need to get involved. We need to get caught in something, and we need to be able to play with it. So I would dare to say that every entrepreneur on the planet, and we all like to hide behind, well, I'm ADHD. You just need focus. I don't suffer from ADHD when I'm in my zone. You just need to be caught, and you just need to get focused.
Oh, same as that. To be honest, Steve, I've only realised this because of my podcast through interviewing different coaches. I'm like, oh, God, oh, I'm a bit like that.
Yeah.
And then I look back on my life and I go, oh, my goodness, that's why. But I see it as a superpower, and I think it's really quite funny, actually.
Totally. Well, that's why I was talking with the people I was talking with, because I wanted to get the advice. I swear that if I was doing, I launched a concierge business working for the most powerful people in the planet in 1995. In fact, people have said that I invented the personal concierge business, but I did that not because I cared about them hanging out with rock stars and movie stars, but if I could give them what they wanted, I could interview them. I could literally just get together with them for a coffee or a lunch or a beer and just go, oh, did you enjoy that? Yeah, I did, Steve. It was great. I've been meaning to ask you, how did you start a shipping company? And why do you buy real estate? How do you fire people? If podcasts had existed in 1995, I would never have launched my company. I'd have just launched a podcast.
Wow, that's quite powerful. That is very powerful. Yeah, for me, I said at the beginning of COVID, I was driving a cab. I was driving a cab because no cab drivers wanted to go out. And I was like, I'll do it. My boyfriend at the time owned a cab company just to get me out of the house. I was that. And then, so this is where this has come across. So now I'm like, actually, in a weird kind of way, I am so grateful for that time, because I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. And it is the people that you meet, the opportunities that come up from that, and learning so much as I go. There's always something that I learn from every single guest. And I've learned loads from you, and it's been fun. This is the most fun way of running your business, in my personal opinion.
Yeah.
Steve, I know you're in LA, but you are coming back to London. So would you like to share with the listeners, even though weirdly, most of my listeners are in the US, I don't know what's going on. they say it's my accent. I don't.
There you go. There you go. Yeah, no, they do the British accent here, and I can tell you that for a fact, for the obvious reason that I'm here. I don't go back to the UK much. In fact, I run an event called a Sim Speakeasy. You can find that at simspeakeasy.com for the American listeners. My next one's actually in New York, but I run masterminds and events and coaching here. And then every now and then I go back to see the family. 2 years ago, I decided, I wonder if people want to get together for just one day of just unload. And we would just go through branding, marketing, positioning, what challenges we got, what we need to look at, and to basically get our eyes fulfilled with those opportunities in today's market. So we did a one-day intensive a few years ago, did really well, and then we decided we're going to do it again. So I'm back on the 24th of August. I've got a venue in Soho, London, and you can find details about it at steveDsims.com. Don't forget the D, and there's only one M in Sims, steveDsims.com/UK. I'm there for one day. We go hot and heavy. We've got no motivational speakers and woo. No. What are we working on? What needs to be working on? And we're only doing it for 18 people. So we actually pick on you. What is your industry? What does need to be disrupted in order for you to stand out? So it's pretty intense, but we do them for 2 days in America. We're doing it for a one day here in London on the 24th of August. Look me up on steveDsims.com/UK.
So it's got to be worth it, right? From the author of basically how to make. What was your book? The art of making things happen.
The first one was Bluefish in the Art of Making Things Happen, and I just did a podcast yesterday, so I actually have a book here. And the second one's Go for Stupid: The Art of Achieving Ridiculous Goals.
I just love that title. The Art of Stupid. See, so what have I got from this conversation? I've got never grow up, stay curious, and I suppose just go for it. That event, it sounds like, no fluff, straight to the point, and it's all about getting things done. Would that be a sort of
100% getting overview? Stuff done for you? Yeah.
Fantastic. Steve, I am honored that you come on my show. I knew it was going to be a lot of fun, and it's turned out to be a lot of fun. So thank you for that. And to the listeners, you know where to go. I am actually going to grab that book as well. So look out for his books too. And other than that, I will be back next week. So bye for now.
Thank you for listening to today's episode on the Podcast Profits Unleashed podcast. If you're a coach, consultant, therapist, or healer who would like to drive sales whilst having fun podcasting, head over to podcastprofitsunleashed.com/free and find out how you can turn your podcast into a sales machine. We'll see you on the next episode.